Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Minor Detail Podcast. I'm your host, Khaila Ariel, and I am so grateful that you are tuning into today's episode. I hope that y'all are ready for this fruitful conversation because I know that it will just be one of the best conversations we're going to have on this podcast. Okay, we're going deep, we're talking full circle, and I'm just so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Joining us is Jade Godbolt. Jade is an OG content creator and beauty influencer, podcast host, alongside her husband, Mark, of the Godbolt Life, creative entrepreneur, mama, wife, and believer in Christ. Welcome to the show, Jade. I am so honored and happy you are joining us.
Kyla, this is so awesome. Me too. I'm like super excited to chat today.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so before we really kick things off and dive deep, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I have a newborn right now on top of two little toddlers. So most nights I don't get a lot of sleep, which, this is my reality at this point. So no complaints. But last night, my newborn slept for like a solid 3 hours in one stint for the first time in almost a month. So I am feeling fully refreshed compared to most days that I wake up.
No, that honestly, that's really exciting. And it's such a blessing. I feel like I'm not a mom and I don't have kids, but I feel like I'm surrounded and close to mothers. And I think that that's such a huge win. So I'm happy
Yeah.
for you.
Oh, listen, we got to celebrate the smalls and the bigs. Okay.
Exactly. Day by day, moment by
Yes.
moment, for sure.
Yes.
No. Okay. Awesome. So, as we talk today, I really want to just like be intentional in our conversation and thinking about our listeners and like where they may be in their own journeys or I also like think about like what would I want to hear if I was a listener. And so that
Yes.
always takes me back to like the origin story, like how people got their start, like where things really like before they even picked up, like where things really began. So quickly, could you tell us a little bit about how you got your start as a content creator?
Yeah. So my story is very interesting because most people that are in my position, kind of have the same story in the sense of they, got on YouTube and started posting, and that was kind of like the trajectory of their or the beginning of their journey. But for me, actually, my true journey, which I don't even talk about this a lot anymore, but my true journey started when I was like 14, 15 years old. And this is like in the MySpace, not even, this is actually before MySpace. This is like Black Planet, okay, Bebo, okay, Hotspot. Well, is Hotspot one of them? I can't remember. But y'all remember, if y'all are like old like me, you remember these, okay, millennials. All right. So I was, I had just moved actually at that time to the States. My parents were in the military. So I grew up overseas until I was 13. And so I grew up very much so like on the internet because I didn't have like the regular American childhood where I even had Nickelodeon on the TV. I didn't have those. I didn't have Cartoon Network, didn't have Nickelodeon. Like we had this, again, I'm dating myself, but if you're a military kid, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We used to have this station called AFN, and it was the military, I don't know, broadcasting network of sorts. And it was like 7 channels, and you had a news channel, you had a cartoon channel or a family channel. And it was basically like a very programmed, not even with commercials, TV experience. So I filtered through out of really being into TV, I was more so into movies and the internet and what you could do on the internet and just being so curious and just always exploring. And so when we moved to the United States, something that me and my friends would do at that time where we would like webcam and like Skype, which before Skype was a thing, we used to like was a Hotmail messenger like back in the day. And that's how we kept in contact with our friends in Germany at the time. So this is like 2004, and we're webcamming all the time, literally staying up till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, webcamming our friends without our parents knowing, and just like really got sucked into like this internet kind of like lifestyle. And at the same time, we had these pages that we would keep up with to like keep up with our friends overseas. So we kind of already had this like dual life of like having friends at school, but like we never been to an American school before. We never lived in America before. So we were very shell shocked. Also being in San Antonio, Texas at the time, like very shell shocked. And so we were like very shy at school, but we could be ourselves on the internet, like with our friends. So fast forward this a little bit, but we started posting and started realizing that people were like stealing our pictures and making fake profiles of us. And it really skyrocketed during like my high school years of like 2007, 2008. Like MySpace was huge. You would go onto MySpace at one point and you could type in my name or the Kendall twins, and there would be like 300 plus profiles of using the same photos just on MySpace at that time. So we kind of just had this already persona online prior to even being a content creator. Content creator didn't even like exist as a terminology at that time. But we got into this mode of like, we just loved like taking pictures and like doing graphics and like posting them on MySpace, or like just like building out websites. Like I used to code little layouts on MySpace. I was just like into all of it very early on. And even like when I was a little girl, like my parents would buy us little cameras, like those disposable cameras. And me and my sister would just take pictures of ourselves, like all day long, get them developed, and just like be in heaven. And like once we got a camcorder in the house, oh my gosh, we were recording everything. We were just always those girls. And so that was really the beginning of my journey as a content creator, was like this like very like, random but like homey way of like doing things. And then it wasn't until I got to college and I wanted to start wearing my hair curly when I started posting on YouTube as Lipstick and Curls, because there was like this natural hair movement that was starting. My hair was so, it was just trash. Okay. So I was like sharing my journey of, just like getting to know what my curls wanted and like what they even looked like. Cause at that point I didn't know. I had been straightening my hair for so long and blah, blah, blah. This is like 2009, 2010 time. And that's when Lipstick and Curls was really born. And that's when I really, content creating became part of my lifestyle in a real way, and then became my profession full time in 2016. And I've been doing it professionally ever since.
That's so awesome, for the simple fact that you can even like track back to high school, track back to even coming to the States. And I think that that's a real origin story, because we don't really think about how like our past experiences that long ago have impacted where we are today. Like it's
My
easy to
whole
say,
life.
yeah, right. Like it's easy to say, oh, in college, I wanted to like wear my hair in its natural state, or in its curly state rather. And I felt inspired to get on YouTube, but like knowing it goes beyond then is just crazy to me. Because I
Yeah.
remember when you were like at the beginning, or like the height of your beginning on YouTube, like I was watching you on YouTube. I'm like, I don't know how to do a wash and go for real. Like I have naturally curly hair, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure this out. Cause like growing up, even in the Black community, that just wasn't a natural thing for us to
Yeah.
do. So I'm on
Right.
YouTube learning from like the, OG creators back then. And I'm like, okay, what products do I need to buy? Okay, what did
Yeah.
Jade say about this? Like, does she like this? Okay, I see her using Garnier. Like, let me use
Yeah.
Garnier. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
it just like almost like catapults into this big, I don't know, like this huge reach. Like, did you ever think about truly how many people you're reaching and touching back then?
Absolutely not. It was not a concept that I could honestly like grasp, because honestly, I would try to, but it just didn't equate in my brain. Because, like I mentioned, I had people taking and stealing my photos since I was 14, 15 years old. So I already had this understanding of what it meant to be known by people that you don't know on the internet, but I could have never understood the magnitude of it. And honestly, this is the other interesting part about this, is that because I started off as being like this person who was catfished to people all the time. And not only that, but there was a lot of downside to that like season of my life. There was a lot of like fear, because we just didn't know what it all meant. We also had a lot of people cyberbullying us. We actually had, oh my gosh, I don't even want to go into it, but we had a whole like years of being like harassed, like in a very, very real, deep way. Low key, I need to write a book about it for kids, because it is a very real thing where people were like tormenting us and like blackmailing us, me and my sister, for years behind the scenes, that I've never shed light on publicly, really, because I never wanted to give them that satisfaction or like give them that light. But it was something that like it really was like I would really wish and pray. Really, I was wishing, I didn't realize I was praying, but I would be talking to God and being like, if I could just make any of this actually matter. Like all these people are taking my photos and like claiming to be me and stuff, but like I'm actually a good person, and I just like wish that it could actually mean something. And that was me, a big part of it. And so like when I got into college, my sister kind of went the opposite direction. She was like, well, if y'all gonna keep stealing my stuff and blackmailing me and stuff, I'm just not gonna do social media. And like that's what Simone did. Like she was like anti social media. She'd post here and there, and she had a YouTube channel for like a hot second, but like she never got into it because she just was so irritated and bothered by the stuff going on behind the scenes. But for me, I went the other direction. I was like, no, y'all are going to see me for who I am. And that's when back then too, a lot of people would get on YouTube and kind of be like a character or a persona. And like that's why like everybody had like names that weren't your real name, because like that was just the time. Like it was just a different time. And so, but I knew like if I was going to be someone on YouTube, I was like, I'm not going to play a part because so many people think they know me, but they really don't. So, like, when I was inspired as far as like the hair stuff goes and beauty stuff, I've always loved beauty, always loved hair. That was like a natural inkling for me as well. But it was also this big part of me that was like, I want to show people who I really am and be able to connect with people because of the good person that I am versus like what I look like. And so that was really like the real behind the scenes, like as I'm doing YouTube, as I'm at my height of lipstick and curls and stuff, like I still had people since I was 14 years old. Literally, I kid you not, I would go to so many different cities, countries, literally through my 20s too, where I would get stopped by people who thought they knew me, guys they thought were dating me. Like, I mean, too many times, like too many times to count. And this was before Lipstick and Curls and after Lipstick and Curls. So when Lipstick and Curls actually took off and I started getting stopped because of Lipstick and Curls and not like the Kendall twins and like being somebody that people were catfishing, it was like such a breath of fresh air and freedom, because I was like, okay, finally, like I'm actually doing something. I'm contributing to the reason why people actually care about me and like know who I am, versus it just being this like very vain thing of like, well, you and your sister are pretty twins. And like, I thought I was dating you. And now like, I realize that I'm not. And it would be, oh my God, listen, I could tell you stories of the awkward male encounters. Okay. Especially when I was in college. Oh Jesus, they really thought they was dating me. Like they really thought, and it would be so sad when I had to pull my ID out, okay, and say, "This is my name. I live in Texas. I do not live in Chicago. I do
That
not live
is
in Montana."
that is
Like,
absolutely insane. Like
yeah.
absolutely insane. And I love that you brought up your sister, because one, I always wonder like how familiar people are with like, their favorite influencers or their favorite YouTubers, and knowing that you have a sister. Like I didn't know that story, that she was like on social and then was
Oh,
anti-social. And I think it's really cool, because I think it's cool, one, because you do have a sister, you have someone to experience that with, and you're not experiencing it alone, because I think it could have easily made you react that opposite way, right? Like Lipstick and Curls could have never become a thing
easily.
because you were just over social. And I can almost relate to that as well, and seeing that, like, certain comments people make, or they're like, you're always taking pictures, or you're always posting on Instagram. Cause I kind of came up in the era like right behind you, but more so when Instagram was getting really popular. And
Yeah.
so it was natural to be on it, but not everyone has that same approach of like
Yeah.
being a creator or sharing their life even, because I
It
think
was the
that's
same way
where it
with YouTube.
starts. Yeah.
Same way with YouTube. I didn't tell people I did YouTube until I was doing it for like 3 or 4 years. It was
Yeah.
like this like other world. Like again, like duality of like, this is who I am in real life, and then this is who I am online. Lipstick and Curls is online, and Jade is who I am
Mhm.
in person. They're the same person, and I don't act differently when it's like me. But it was like, there's people that know me as this entity, and then there's people that know me like in real life, and I don't ever cross populate. Like it wasn't until probably like around 2016, 2017, when I was doing creating content full time, and it was more of a time where people were vlogging and people were like more kind of like open. That's when I really started being more confident in like what I did on YouTube and stuff, because before then, like I would get in Ubers and people would be like, oh, what are you in town for? I'd be like traveling to go shoot in LA or in New York or something like that with a brand, and I'd be like, oh, I work in marketing. or I work in social media. Like, I would never say I'm a YouTuber. I would never say even now, I still get weird about saying I'm an influencer, but I'm also over that point in my life where I'm like weird about identity and like labeling. And I'm just like, I create content, like, and I'm
Yeah.
proud of it now. But listen, that was like a thing for a long time, was just like, because people, they got assumptions and they got their own opinions about, oh, like you said, like, oh, you taking pictures of yourself, like you think you this and that, da da da. And honestly, that's about them and not about you at the end of the day. So
Exactly.
like, go ahead. If that's what you want to think, that's what you want to think. But what you don't realize, and what I think is incredible about this day and age, is like, back then they thought you was crazy, but now they want to do what you do. Like, everybody want to be an influencer, even if you don't have a large platform. To be able to have people that outside of the brand deals, outside of the money, it's like when you have a group of people that like the same things you like and actually relate to you on like a real level, like that's why I think being yourself as an influencer it's more important than just getting engagement and like being more human, so that you can, like, what I mean? It's outside the tactics. It's about when you are actually yourself and you build an audience being you, there's a connection there, and there's a real sense of community and likeness that is very unique to this experience of like a virtual community building. And you can't get that anywhere else, and you can't fake that. So that authenticity, it's like you get as much out of it that you get, but or you get as much as you give, for example. So like, and that's not going to look like, okay, well, if I put in 10 hours every day for a year, then my follower count is going to go up this much. And it's not going to be this tit for tat measurable thing all the time. It's going to be, I've been doing this for years and I have made 0 cents. I'm actually negative in my account right now. But then all of a sudden, one day, boom, you get a brand deal. And it's like, wait, how am I being paid to do one post for as much money as I made last month?
Man.
For like 10 minutes of work. How is this possible? That's when those are the moments that you're working towards, because it's like you're every single time you are like feeding into your purpose or what you want to build your platform about, from an authentic place, from a real place. You're sowing seeds. Just keep sowing seeds. You got to get addicted to sowing seeds, because it ain't always harvest time. But listen, it's always seed planting time, at least in my opinion, because even when things shift, you got to have something else cooking in the background so that it can, make its way. And I think that like my journey has really like showed me that so many times. God like pushed me into a direction, like me starting a YouTube channel in 2010. Like nobody else around me was doing no YouTube channel. Nobody was, but it was like I felt led and called to do that, and it felt good in a way. And I was just like, I wasn't getting paid. It was just something I felt very like connected to. And so who would have known that when I graduated from college that I would be like doing that full time, eventually. So, and then building a whole career, but and even now, like transitioning into being a mom and like sharing my birth journeys and all these different things, and like my marriage, and it's like the tides are shifting again, but it's never like a clean split. Like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks as Lipstick and Curls, I'm gonna start my job as Mama Jade. It don't work like that. It's seeds were being planted for a long time, before the complete transition happened.
I love that. And you have touched on so many points. I'm like, we can
Listen,
go so many ways.
Talk, okay, I'm a podcaster too. Okay, so like,
you know how it goes. You know how it goes.
Yes.
No, and I think that's so good, because I feel like I mean, like I said, this could go so many ways, but one of because first of all, you were speaking, but directly to me and just in general. But I think one of the more important things that you mentioned was really just about being addicted to sowing seeds and being open-minded, really is what it sounds like, to whichever way your life might turn, and still being capable of capturing that authenticity within your content. And I think one of the biggest questions that just comes to my mind when I think about you is like, so many people have known you since the beginning of your career as Lipstick and Curls, but with over a decade in the game, you're obviously like at one of your strongest points. Like, you're still standing. What has the journey or evolution of Jade been like? And this can be from a personal standpoint, it can be from a professional standpoint. I feel like naturally, again, life is going to ebb and it's going to flow, and you have to
Mhm.
operate with that in mind.
Absolutely. And I think, it's so funny because there have been so many moments where I felt inadequate, where I felt like I was chasing something, where I felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I would just go hard. And what I realized looking back is the plan was already set. I was just walking it out. And every time that I tried to insert my plan instead of the plan that God had me on already, it was like extra work, extra stress, extra worry, extra anxiety. And in all actuality, I still ended up here because I think like part of me is like, I would have never thought that I could make it doing this 10 plus years at all, ever. I didn't even know this was a career or a thing to exist. But at the same time, the evolution has not been, beautiful all the time. I think like the best of it I've shown online, but for me, I've also tried to do a good job of being authentic and honest about the times when like it has not been great. And like I have a video from 2013 actually when I'm like, this is so funny. So I haven't thought about this video in so long, but it comes to my mind. So I was actually just graduated from college, undergrad. I had been with this guy for like 7 years. He was my high school sweetheart. He played football. He had now at this point gotten to the NFL. I said we had, it was a college thing. So it was like we was together in high school. Then we got to college at our universities. We broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together, had a little fling, got back together. It was just all of that, right? So I essentially forced myself back into a relationship with this man because I basically got denied from all of my grad school applications and I didn't have a plan anymore. And so I was like, well, this is just what I'm supposed to do then. I'm supposed to come and be your NFL wife. Like, this is what I'm. And I go 3 months in and it's a freaking disaster. It is literally, oh my gosh, so bad. I literally left there. Back to the video. I sat outside of our little apartment and I record this video and I'm just like, I am feeling it. Like I am feeling the downhill spiral of like you were top notch in college. I was a Delta. I was president of this, president of that, everything, right? The ish. Then you leave and nobody cares about you no more. No one. Okay. And there's not all these people hyping you up. You don't have all these accolades. You don't have all these titles. And on top of that, I'm in a failing, which I didn't open up about this in the video, but that was also what was happening was I was in a failing relationship and I really wasn't ready to let go of it. But God was forcing me out of it because it was so bad, and not bad because he was bad. It was bad because he was actually being honest with me about how unhappy he was and how he was not in love with me. And I just couldn't accept it. So I was willing that thing to work. And so I record that video and I'm really being honest about like how hard it had been for me to just be okay with the scenario that I was in. And at that point, I pushed myself into YouTube because I was like, well, I got to wait a year anyway to like reapply to grad school and figure out what I'm going to do and blah, blah, blah. So I got a retail job and I was just so, my pride was hurt about that. Cause I'm like, I got a degree. What am I doing working at Marciano? Like, what is happening right now? So I'm working Marciano. I'm doing YouTube, and doing YouTube helped me really kind of build my confidence back up and kind of find like just like settled ground, because I think like I had to come off of that high and ego ride of college and like all of that stuff that had been just like in my mind through my college years. And so I finally get into grad school, still doing YouTube and stuff, but I actually was going to quit Lipstick and Curls when I graduated from grad school because I was like, I think I got to get a real real job. Like I gotta, figure out what I'm really gonna do. And I had all these plans, and I was gonna be a VP of student affairs one day, and I was just gonna do all this stuff. I was gonna get my PhD. I was really tapped in, y'all. I'm an all or nothing type of person.
This is just so crazy to even listen to you talk about, because I'm like, you were going to quit? What? Like, I never would have.
December 31, 2015 was my projected last day of LipstickNCurls. Like I planned it.
That is crazy. Let's pause really quickly, because I remember the video you're talking about. I was in
Okay.
college. Yeah, I was in college. I think I watched that. I was also dating a college athlete at the time, so it probably imprinted on me, because I was like, oh yeah. I mean, if you have been in that position, like, you can relate to thinking that your life is going to go a certain way, is what I'll say.
Oh, yeah.
And you have it planned to, like, when you said become an NFL wife, I'm just dying inside, because I was like, that was so stupid, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? And I like, it's our truth, but I think it's also something powerful, and being able to look at it from the other side, because there's a lot of like growth and self, just like motivation, and I won't say choosing you to be dramatic, but I think that there's a level of realizing that, okay, it's time for me to wake up and actively be a part of my own life, like actively
That
make this,
part.
you know what I
That
mean?
part,
Because
and not
for a
base my
while,
life on
off of
somebody
someone else.
else's like trajectory. Like that right there is exactly why that was wrong. Not because being an NFL wife was wrong. It was because I was thinking that my life was dependent upon his life, and like everything that I was going to do. And honestly, what a sellout I was doing, being on my own self. Like I wasn't even giving myself the opportunity to be and think and do bigger things in my own vision of myself. I thought at my 22, 23-year-old self, that was the capacity of me and my life,
100%. And you had so much. Clearly, we're here today. You had so much ahead of you, and I think like this is a topic of conversation that I could talk to women about specifically forever. Like I could go on, because I really do believe that we, like, there's a point in our life we have to realize that no one is going to save us but ourselves. And I think that that's what it comes down to. It's like you wake up and you realize, like, okay, I'm actually not happy. Why am I forcing this? This is what I want to do, right? And then you make the next plan, and the next plan might not be it either, right? You wanted to leave LipstickNCurls, which is crazy to even think about, but it still got you to like take that first step to be open to something else.
100%. And that's how it usually works. I'll say this. I used to be, because I'm a new thing now, but I used to be very stubborn. I used to be very, very, very anti-change. And I was very prideful, very ego-driven. And I considered myself a good person. Like it wasn't like I was rude to people or mean or bad or anything like that. I was genuinely still myself at the root of me, but the pride and the ego behind the scenes of it all was still tainting me in ways. And so like that was one of those things where God had to take me through seasons, multiple, of breaking down my pride and my ego in different ways, because it was so wrapped up in and out of who he made me to be. And like he has to clean that out. So sometimes when we go through like struggle seasons, or just like seasons of like confusion, or just like feeling like, wait, I thought that was the plan for my life. Now I'm realizing it's not, but I don't know what the future looks like. But what do? I can't just stay here. Like the days continue to go on, and like I still got to make decisions every day and about where I'm going to be in my life and all this stuff, right? And it's like, that's when God is trying to shake you up and trying to get your attention. Like, hey, yeah, you don't have the plan because you're not supposed to have the plan. If you're supposed to have the plan, I would have put it in your mind. But if you don't have it in your mind, then that means you got to talk to me about it, period.
Exactly.
So like that's what that was for me. And I did talk to him, like I was praying. I was getting back into my faith walk at that time when I got into grad school, because things had kind of like settled for me. Like I was very happy in my program, and I was really still in love with LipstickNCurls, love doing what I was doing. And so between my first and second year of grad school, that summer, I decided not to work. And I told myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a test. All right. The test is going to be whether or not LipstickNCurls can pay my bills for 3 months. If LipstickNCurls can pay my bills for 3 months, then I will be more serious, and I will really consider like doing this like in a real way. Or if I can't make money this summer, I'm going to quit and I'm going to focus on like preparing myself for getting a job after grad school. Long story short, I didn't make enough money to pay my bills for the summer. So that was when I said, okay, Jade, well, that was your time. December 31, 2015, you gonna quit. And so you can focus your last semester on getting a job. I literally got to December 31, 2015. All right, I'm good. I'm done. I didn't really post. And then literally in January, I got an email about being in a Colgate commercial. And then
Wow.
2 months, not even 2 months, then probably I got that email and then more money that I had ever seen in my entire life. And then maybe a couple weeks later after the email, I get a cold email from a woman at an agency in LA who ends up eventually being my manager, who like became one of my closest friends and literally took me to places and showed me things and helped me build as a woman, as a creator so much, and just helped take my career to like such another level. And then that same spring, I graduated from grad school, and I was like, okay, so now God is putting the pressure back on for me to say, like, no, don't quit. Like, clearly, this is something that I'm supposed to do. I'm scared, but like, and I'm talking to my parents, like, yeah, I know you just paid for me to go to grad school for the last 2 years, but like, I think I'm gonna just do this
Do
thing.
this
And they're
other
like,
thing instead.
right, like do what? I like post on YouTube and they're like, wait, what? And they knew at this point that I had been doing events and I had like a magazine feature, and obviously I got the Colgate commercial. And so they were a little bit more primed than I thought that they would be, but even still, I was still very nervous about telling them that I was going to do this full time. But when I told even my dad, who was the one who financed my grad school experience, he was like, why didn't you try to do that this whole time? Like, why didn't you try to go into like marketing or like magazines or blah, blah, blah before? And I was just like, wait, Dad, what? You wait until I gave 4 years of my life to an education degree in undergrad. And then I gave another 2 to a grad program in education for you to tell me now that you think I should have, what? And so it was just one of those moments where I was like, I I was just like, okay, I guess I am supposed to do this because everybody else around me sees it, but like I didn't see it, and I kept trying to like question it. And I mean, once I made that decision, it kind of just like took off. But to pull it all the way back though to like this evolution question, because I have to talk about this because this is recent. This has been 2022 has been one of the hardest years of my career. Like, I'm talking about personally, I'm talking about professionally, financially, to be transparent. The pandemic actually was a great opportunity in 2020 when all the budgets were still from 2019 and all the marketing and all the things shifted to digital. And we had an incredible year that year and even into 2021. But a shift has happened in this social media influencer marketplace where my audience's taste level has changed. I've changed. And I don't really connect with the same people as I did for those years prior to, for multiple reasons, not just because of me, but we all evolve and we all change and have different likes and dislikes and things like that. And also for me personally, like I think when you do so much brand work, and this is me talking about myself, when you do so much brand work, people can get overwhelmed by that. People can get pushed off by that. And I think not necessarily people got irritated with me. Some people may have, that's fine. I lost thousands of followers in the last couple of years, but it's I think it's also like this general kind of feeling of like people are over being sold to 24/7. And it's like, it was cool when it was like a few people as influencers were getting paid. So it was like you saw a lot of content that was organic, and then you'd see an ad here and there. But it started to slowly but surely become this place where these kind of balances that we used to have back in the day of like, I have to have way more organic content than sponsored content on my platform kind of went away. And so like for me, I always tried my best to keep a balance. I was never every post I do is sponsored type of person, but some people were. And so I think as a general, like population community of influencers, we started going to that place where people just in general were like, I'm over this. It's not just Jade, it's like all of them. They're all doing all this paid content. They're all doing this stuff. And it just feels like I don't care anymore. And so there's that, came into play. And then also just the rise of TikTok and like this new like form of like raw-ish content that people put out. And it kind of reminds me of like old school YouTube, which is great. And I love, because I think there needed to be authenticity put back into this space. And I think TikTok allows that to happen way better than Instagram does and Facebook and things like that. But it did shift the way finances were like distributed on, in these companies and brands are feeling the pandemic. So for me personally, I didn't get as much work this year as I ever have in the past. And it's multiple things happened professionally for me that never happened before in my 10 plus years of doing what I do. And one of the biggest ones was like, I actually lost a contract. And that was a very like, stick in my heart moment, because I really, really prided myself in the past on being not just a book one time content creator. I'm a rebook queen. Okay. I want to get rebooked because that means I did a great job the first time and I'm getting another check for the next time. You know what I mean? So I was always about that rebooking. And so like the rebooking slowed up this year. And so I didn't work with a lot of partners that I had worked with in the past. And then also this specific contract was a rebooked contract. Like, so for me, I'm like, oh, I got this in the bag. Like they came back and were like, they wanted to offer me more money and like wanted to work again. It wasn't me asking, it wasn't me pitching. And so my management go back and forth with them, negotiating, we get a budget, we do all this stuff. And then at the very, midnight hour, they're like, well, the brand doesn't want to work anymore because of, we're just shifting our campaign or something very vague. And we were like, wait, what? Like, how are you going to just like change your mind? Like, that's not how this works. Okay. Like you don't go 5 rounds of negotiations and then say y'all are backing out. So we got some clarity on that. And it wasn't anything on me in that situation, but it was one of those things where like in this year, I've had multiple situations where it's not me, they say, but it's like your engagement isn't what it used to be. The numbers aren't what they need to be based on the expectations that are out there now. Because again, 4 years ago, even 3, 5 years ago, whatever, engagement rates and percentage and all that was not a huge factor in whether or not you got work. It was a matter of, did you fit the campaign metrics and KPIs and things like that outside of just like, did you hit these numbers? Because it's hard to gauge whether or not content is successful based on just numbers or just clicks or this and that. And in this world now, it's becoming more of that, which I completely understand because brands have to make it make sense, right? For the bottom line. But I've always been what they call an awareness creator, which is I'm the one that's putting you on to something new. And my audience is predominantly Black women. And we don't shop on a whim. Okay. We're going to have to see it a couple times. We're going to have to like see the post and then see it in the store and then think about it and then go back and then get back on YouTube. And then I'm going to go buy it. And I may not even go back to the original post that has the link on it because that's just not how we shop. But there's a lot to that. But this year has been a lot of like kind of like harsh realities for me to like basically evolve into what this space is now versus what I've known it to be for all these years, and really deciding like, okay, do I really want to stay in this? Do I need a shift? Do I need to go do something else? Do I need to go, and because of my faith, I'm just like, okay, God, I gotta just stick with you because you not telling me to go work for nobody else, but you also telling me to like do these new things, and these new things ain't bringing my brand deals in like I used to, but like maybe you're trying to do a new thing. So I guess I'm just going to trust you in the new thing and we're just going to rock till we, till the wheels fall off. But, here we are,
Yeah, man, that's so good too, because one of the, and we just talked about it, it's like you're reading my mind, but one of the thoughts I also had was like, I wonder what Jay thinks about like the current state of influencing. But I love how you dove into like the strategy behind like what working with brands is really like. You know, I have experience working with brands at a smaller scale, but I also have experience working in advertising for brands as an influencer manager, like on campaigns.
Yeah.
And so having that outlook of both like the front end and the back end, you kind of see how things really operate in the back end, most importantly, because you're knowing how big budgets are. You're knowing how willing you know, brands are how willing they want to work with certain creators, but you're also seeing how quickly things change. And knowing the fact that you had a contract kind of pull from under you, I'm almost like, what was the reason? You know what I mean? And I think I'm someone who, working in this industry, I'm really big on not leaning heavily into vanity metrics, because I don't think that they accurately depict, like you said before, like the success of a campaign. And I also think, you know, lastly, what you said in regards to like having a Black audience, having a majority Black woman audience, you're totally right. We do not buy on a whim. When I work with brands, especially when it comes to like just ambassadorship and things of that nature, I let them know like I need time, especially if it's something like let's say it's like a vitamin or something that like for my skin. I'm like, I'm not going to take this product and just introduce it as something I love, because that is not authentic, that's not genuine. But in reality, like I need to know this works for me before I go talking to my audience, because I know how my audience thinks. I'm a Black woman, I am my audience, you know what I mean? And I think what I'll say, you know, to really wrap it up is like, not all brands understand this. Not all brands, you know, the people that really sit in these front offices look like us. So sometimes I do a lot of like advocating for creators of color, because I'm like, listen, the lens that you're looking through is really not the lens that is reality for a lot of people. You know, you're thinking about the majority of folks, you're thinking about the people that you're used to seeing, but that's not the reality for us. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's the thing that I think, you know, before COVID, like there was a bit more wiggle room and budgets were larger. And so like I genuinely, you know, back in the day, as far as like 2015, 2016, and I used to travel a lot, and I would go to LA or New York primarily, and I would sit in meetings with brands. You know, I would have 4 or 5 different meetings with brands that I just wanted to build relationship with, you know, while on those trips. And I got a lot of my brand deals from those one-on-one interactions where I was able to talk to a brand rep and really discuss, you know, what my audience was like, and also showcase my personality and show like my genuine interest in the brand, the products, the campaign, whatever it was. And then that's how we would lock in those deals. And a lot of time, I would also meet with agency reps too. So like that agency rep would be representing multiple brands. So then I would be, you know, I'm connected with the agency person. So the agency person is like, oh my gosh, yes, like Jade may, you know, not be, you know, like the numbers may not be as crazy as this girl over here, but like her personality, the way that she speaks to her audience is so like spot on to like what we want to be attached to. So like, let's like lock her in kind of thing. That was a lot of, I mean, I would say majority of my deals, even prior to, you know, the pandemic, was like that. But, you know, when those front facing one-on-one conversations stopped happening because of, you know, we can't go nowhere, and, you know, people leave agencies, a lot of things switched up, you know, and budgets as well. So it was like everything changed, and everything became so like, if it don't look right on paper, it's not going to make sense. That really kind of shifted the way that I approach, you know, my work and like the deals and stuff. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times I'm talking to big brands. I'm not talking to like, you know, small like businesses. So for a lot of the content, even when I do try to work with like Black owned beauty brands and things like that, which I'm always on the lookout for, I'm always trying to work with, their budgets are so small, I can't live off of that. So when I go and I talk to, you know, big people like P&G, it's like I have to explain to them like how we're so different to all of the points that you said, because the people that are making those decisions at the table don't look like us. They don't understand our community. And they also don't realize how different we really are, because we don't really have conversations out, even within our community, about our purchasing habits, or like how we navigate like, how we buy things or whatever. And so it's like so much to that. And I really appreciate it. I have to shout out my manager, Tristan, at Estate 5, because she is a young Black female. She's a lawyer, but she now manages talent at Estate 5 here, actually based in Dallas, and which is also incredible because I'm like, oh my gosh, I live in a place where like my agency is great, and I don't have to be in LA or New York. But she really advocates for this idea of like Black creators, especially Black female creators, just like we talk to our audiences so differently. And that was one of the reasons why I actually started working with her, was because she voiced that perspective in such a way that I had never heard somebody really break down before. And I was like, that's the kind of person I need on my team, because she really gets it, and she's able to utilize that when she's negotiating brand deals, and also when she's speaking to agencies and brands and things like that, because you need somebody who's going to be able to actually articulate what you do in a way that you don't, right? So when you're looking at people to like assist you or manage you or whatever as a creator, you need people around you. And even as a general team in any sort of way, you need people around you that like speak other languages in a way, so that, you're not just only understanding each other, but it's like they understand you, you understand them, and you talk to different people at different tables in different languages so that you can push the mission forward. And that was one of the biggest things that she helped me kind of like actually articulate. I knew innately, but she articulated in a way that I was like, that's what it is. And I have to be okay with that, because I'm not going to, not be proud of the community that I've built just because they're not clicking and they're not engaging the same way as other people or whatever. It's not about that. I'm not here for that. I'm here to continue building a community that is really tapped into bettering themselves, whether it be through wearing your natural hair and really embracing who you are and like who God has created you to be, or it's now I'm, showing people how to like do marriage and like how to like bring life into the world in a way that like they may have never seen before. And I know that like God has called me to do that in a way where it's like I'm showing who he is to them in my own way, and that's so much more fulfilling than trying to do content that gets clicks.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, the rest will fall into place
Yeah,
regardless, just because
100%.
of that mindset, and I think again, perfect segue. You're you're doing the interview at this point. Like you're doing the episode. You know exactly what's coming up. But I love, you bringing God into the fold, because that's also major for me, like on a personal level. And even someone that is a part of your audience, someone that uplifts faith in my own audience. Like that's something that I admire watching you from a distance, is witnessing how God has moved in your life and how transparent you've been about sharing both like just God in general and faith in general, but also your experiences with your audience. I think that that's a level of like transparency and vulnerability that can be scary for many people,
Yeah.
because at this point now knowing a little bit of dirt. Like now it's not just about lipstick and curls and hair and beauty and like brands. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm telling you what's really happening, and y'all have your podcast where y'all get really deep. So that's just like on its own, it can be heavy. What was
Yeah.
your motivation? And this might be obvious at this point based on the conversation, but I just want to hear from you directly, is like, what was your motivation for prioritizing this part of your life?
At the end of the day, it came down to I could either listen to God or not. I could obey or not. And whatever you do on your own, you have to sustain. And whatever you do that God tells you to do, God has to sustain. So I said, okay, I don't want to do it all by myself anymore. So I'm going to choose the thing, even though it's scary, even though I don't understand how all this is going to work together. I don't understand how I can go from being Lipstick and Curls to Jade Godbolt online and kind of becoming this new thing, and how it's going to make sense, especially when, like I said, this whole year has been really tough for me. I've had a lot of losses professionally in this year, and also just like, when you're used to being so metric focused in this industry, it's like brands want you to continuously grow your engagement and your follower count and things like that. And kind of it's just become this natural thing of like grow, grow, grow. But it's like, what happens when you have a 2-year stint of sustained loss? Like I have lost thousands of followers in the last 2 years. And I feel like people are like so like scared to like admit that or to hear that or to think that that could be them, but like that's what happens at this level. It's like you start to get to a place where it's not all about growth. Sometimes the growth is actually in you and not in your follower count. And like part of losing the followers, I think again was God being like, do you care more about the followers or do you care more about what I'm telling you to do? And I had to choose. I cared about more about what he was telling me to do. It hurt. It was like breaking down again, like the old mentality I used to have and kind of like what my mentality had transitioned into over time too. Cause like I didn't always have this mindset of like growth, 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 more brand deals until maybe in the last like 3 or 4 years, just because it was going so well that it was like I was riding this high of like, oh my gosh, like they want to work with me and they want to work with me. And like, oh my gosh, I'm getting flown out to Costa Rica. I'm getting flown out to Morocco. I'm getting just like all these things. And it really got to my head, not in a way where it changed my personality or who I was, but it started shifting me, inching me away from like why I do what I do. And it became more about on a daily basis what I needed to do to satisfy the brands and less about what I needed to do to satisfy God and like the people that I was leading. Cause that's what I see my audience as. I see them as like, my constituents that I'm, leading towards a mission or trying to help build up. And that's what it was for me when it was Lipstick and Curls, back in the day, trying to teach y'all how to like figure out your hair. And like, that was a mission for me because it felt like it was bigger than just hair because so many women and men too figured out their hair, which equaled spiritually that they were figuring out themselves. And that kind of got lost over time as this industry grew and I grew. And I think God used the last year and a couple years to kind of bring me back to my origin, my true purpose, which is to just be a vessel for him and to do whatever I'm being called to do and use my influence in the way that he's, calling me to use it.
Man, so beautiful. We might need a part two to this. I don't
Hey, let
know.
me know. I'm
Some way,
here.
somehow. We're both in Dallas. We'll figure it out. But no,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you just so much for being on today, Jade. This is absolutely beautiful. I think that there has been so much growth that I have witnessed, from knowing you, both personally, semi, and on the internet. And I'm just like so proud and happy and excited to see all that you're doing, all that God has planned for you. I think it's going to be amazing. Also, continue to just share with us. You know what I mean? Like, who am I to tell you that? But seriously, I think that you are so good at just sharing your life in a very genuine way. And not everyone who is a creator can do that. Like, that's hard. That is
Yeah.
really, really hard to not
Yeah.
fall deep into like just making things feel so salesy and adsy, but like being okay
Oh,
with
listen,
that.
I've been there.
Not,
I've been there. Like
yes.
that's the thing. That's the beautiful part of like I think being where I'm at now is that I've been doing this for a long time. Like people may think that I've never been in those places, but guess what? I've been there. In 10 plus years, I've been in those places where it was too salesy, where it was too much of this or too much of that. And I came back to at the end of the day, I just got to be myself. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, I just got to share like what God is really doing and like how I'm really feeling, and that's not always going to be this like super curated, super like aesthetically pleasing moment. I always have a goal of like creating content that is aesthetically pleasing and high quality and things, and I feel like I do that well, but like really at the end of the day, that's just a desire, not a requirement for
Mm-hmm.
content and sharing life. And so I've gone through like those levels, and I think that if people just took back their true calling in creating content and just like didn't get caught up in like, well, they're doing it this way and that's what's getting the most views on Instagram and that's what's going crazy on TikTok right now, and I got to make content that looks like that and sounds like that and feels like that. It's about being authentically you, and that's what sustains you, and that's what you can rely on to actually give you the type of, if you want to really do this for a long time, never have another boss again in your life, that's what you got to stick to. And you will drift off at times. That's part of the journey, is like the ebbs and flows, but you can always come back. You can always get back to your real core reason why you do what you do, why you create what you create. And that's what I think I am supposed to help show people with my trajectory, with my career, with my content, is like I am called to show y'all what life can look like. Like, this is an option. It's not just Jade's life. It could be yours in your own way. This is just the way that God's doing it for me and my family, but he wants to do the same thing for you and your family. You just got to like get tapped in, like just get tapped in your own way. And it's yours. It's literally yours. And I think like that's another reason why people have stuck with me for so long, is that because there's so many fake things out here, so many counterfeit versions of marriage and life and family and houses and the shoes and the cars and the clothes and all this. But at the end of the day, like, you're looking and yearning for something real to hold on to, and something real to really like say, now that's what I desire. I want something like that, like the love that you can feel from this birth video that I just posted. Like, me and my husband giving birth to our son in our living room by ourselves with God, because that was it. The love in that is real. And people don't see that a lot. So I know God is using that. I know God is using that to be like, I'm here. Y'all think I'm just like some mysterious, like, you can't touch me entity. No, he's living, he's breathing, he's literally in us, he's here. We just have to like get out of our way, our own way, and actually allow him to like make the decisions and plan for our lives. But if we keep trying to make the plan by ourselves, he doesn't get the opportunity to show himself. So like, make room, like step out of the way, give him the calendar, give him your schedule, and say, Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Even if it sounds crazy, even if it don't look like what I planned, like do whatever. I will do whatever you want me to do, and watch your life change. Period. You will never stay the same when you operate with God. You will always have a transformation happen, but you got to in your heart really accept and embrace that, because you can't fake that.
Amen. Well, listen, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Lastly, I'm just going to ask Jade, where can the people find you? Where can we continue to be poured into like this? Because this episode, I just, yes, it's everything. Okay.
Listen, I love it. I love it. And it's been such a pleasure to be on too and chatting. But you can find me, y'all, all over the internets at Jade Godbolt, JadeGod. Yes, like God, GODBOLT. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, all the things. But yeah, I'm not hard to find online. And then we also have a podcast, my husband Mark and I, called the Godbolt Life Podcast. We talk about a lot of things, okay, especially the faith things, and how God has really transformed our marriage and our lives and our family. And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Listen, thank you again a million times over for being here, for the listeners listening in. Yes, I hope that y'all